Tonight, we're looking at Agatha and its strengthening ahead of a landfall in Mexico as a Category 2. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 29th. Well, we have a storm in the picture in the form of Tropical Storm Agatha, which was named in the last 18 hours, and has strengthened quite a bit since, up to 60 miles an hour as of the posting of this bulletin. We're up to 27 storms so far this year. The average is 92 for the full year. Looking at the Atlantic, we have an area of interest as we now get closer to the beginning of hurricane season. It's located in the Bay of Campeche, and it does have something to do with Agatha, although we're not exactly sure what we're going to be seeing, whether it's the remnant low or if it's a new low that it forms after Agatha dissipates. In the Eastern Pacific, we have Agatha itself. It's expected to become a hurricane. Category 2 is what the National Hurricane Center is calling for before it makes the first ever Category 2 landfall in May in Mexico. So definitely some historical records we could be seeing out of this. In the Western Pacific, we're looking at Invest 93W, which has a 0% chance of formation as it heads to the northwest, so pretty much another useless invest that was marked. We also have 92P in the southern hemisphere, but that also has a 0% chance of forming. In the North Indian Ocean, you can see that it's also a blank slate here. There is nothing that is usually seen at this time of year, so it is no surprise that there is nothing here as well. And that's going to be staying the case for quite some time now that we're past the first peak of the season. Moving on into the Atlantic satellite imagery, you can see the only feature really is Agatha in the Eastern Pacific. Of course, it's down there to the south of Mexico. Other than that, not really much going on. A cold front that recently exited into the Western Atlantic, and then of course some extratropical systems up there in the Northern Atlantic. Other than that, not really much going on there. In the Eastern Pacific, you can see another view of Agatha. As it continues to strengthen. It looks like the satellite imagery just slightly broke there, but it's fine. In the Hawaii, you're seeing nothing there. A little disturbance that passed there recently, but other than that, nothing much going on. Not sure why the Eastern Pacific imagery is acting up, but sure. In the Western Pacific, you can see what's going on, and not really much of anything. You can see 93W, it's that little disturbance to the southwest of Palau there. Pretty far south invest in general. It's expected to head north-northwestward, but the environmental conditions are just looking way too hostile for this thing, and no development is expected with that. In the North Indian Ocean, you can see what's going on. Not really much of anything. The Arabian Sea is looking completely dry, and there's a bit of shower activity going on towards Malaysia, but other than that, nothing really going on. And then you can see an updated imagery view of Agatha. It's shrimping out, that's what we like to call it, of course. Definitely signs that we could be starting to see that quicker intensification trend. Of course, that peak is probably going to be tomorrow night into Monday morning before the conditions continue to deteriorate and we see that landfall. Here are the sea surface temperatures that we have. 29 to 30 degrees Celsius is where Agatha is located at. As you head westward across the Eastern Pacific, those temperatures drop to around 27 to 28. In the Gulf of Mexico, it's pretty warm, around 27 to 28 as well. Same can be said for the main development region in the Caribbean, around 27 to 28. And as you head into the subtropics, it does cool down a bit. Once you're north of Bermuda, it's around 25 to 26. Much colder as you head towards Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. It's pretty much what you would typically see, just a bit warmer in some spots. In the North Indian Ocean, it's around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. The cool pool that was left by Asani is practically gone at this point. In the Western Pacific, you can see the temperatures are quite warm, especially near the Philippines, where it's near 30 degrees Celsius. South China Sea and practically everywhere else in the Western Pacific is around 28 to 29. And in the Southern Hemisphere, we're looking at those 27 to 28 degrees Celsius temperatures. Of course, it gets cooler as you head more south, and those temperatures will continue to recede now that we're past the season over there. Moving on over into our sea surface temperature anomalies, you can quite clearly see the La Nina that we still have taken a hold. The Western Atlantic looking exceptionally warm, and practically the entire Atlantic between the Gulf of Mexico and main development region looking above average. Western Pacific looking above average, North Indian Ocean having its fair share of above average and below average, and the Central Pacific looking pretty much dead overall. Here is the on this day. We were looking at May 29th, 2008. We had a very, very far eastern tropical storm, Tropical Storm Alma. Its damages would of course cause its retirement later on, and we also had Category 4 Typhoon Nakri. That was peaking on this day, and of course, that would be one of the major typhoons that we saw this season. Luckily stayed out to sea, and you can find more of our on this day products followed by cyclone history. You can find them more on the Twitter handle below. So with that being said, that brings us over to the next names. In the Atlantic, the first name remains Alex. In the Eastern Pacific, we're looking out for Balas and Celia now. And in the Central Pacific, while Obi-Wan Kenobi may be your last hope, we can tell you right now that no one has the force strong enough to bring you Hone. Moving on over into the Western Pacific, the next name is Chaba, followed by Irie. And in the North Indian Ocean, we're looking out for Citrang, followed by Mandus. Of course, those names we probably won't be seeing for a while, now that we've passed the first peak of the season in the North Indian Ocean. Going on over into the Southern Hemisphere, the next name in the Southwest Indian Ocean is Latlama. The next name in the Australian region is Darien. And in the South Pacific, we're looking out for Halley. We'll be back for another Tropical Bulletin tomorrow night, along with other storm updates and live coverage on Agatha.